So it's August 2026, and you are basically standing right in the middle of this massive paradox in the business world.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
Right, like everywhere you look, you see the headlines, you hear that, frantic energy in the IT department,
Yeah.
the boardroom mandates to just get with the program, and honestly, at first glance, the numbers look like a total victory.
They really do. I mean, the adoption rates are wild.
Yeah, right now, 70% of enterprises have adopted AI, 78% are actively running pilots, but then you pull up the actual operating statements, and reality just hits you like a cold splash of water.
That's where the story totally changes.
Exactly. 79% of those enterprises report absolutely no measurable EBIT impact. None. That's, earnings before interest and taxes, the actual core operational profit, completely unaffected by generative AI. And out of all those shiny celebrated pilots, only about 14% actually survive to see enterprise-wide production.
Yeah, it's a staggering disconnect. The market has completely solved the question of whether to adopt AI. I mean, everyone's doing it.
Right.
But it has almost entirely failed to solve how to turn that adoption into, defensible bottom-line value. Companies are buying the tech, but the profit is quite literally evaporating in the machinery.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission for today's deep dive is not to talk about, how cool or advanced AI models are. We know the technology works.
Yeah, the models are ready. That's not the bottleneck anymore.
Right. So our mission today is to figure out exactly why that value evaporates in the space between a really impressive pilot and actual production. And more importantly, we are looking at a proposed roadmap for how to actually fix it.
Yeah, and to understand this massive market failure, we are looking closely at a really fascinating blueprint. It's called the Enterprise AI Value Realization Engine.
The value realization engine. Okay, who put this together?
This comes from a firm called the Agentics. They are an enterprise AI transformation firm, headquartered in Amsterdam, but they have a really broad footprint.
It's like global.
Yeah, across Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia.
And they are making a pretty aggressive claim here, right?
Oh, very aggressive. Their entire operating philosophy is built around turning AI pilots into measurable enterprise-wide value inside of 6 to 12 months.
Wow. 6 to 12 months is fast for enterprise scale.
It is. But they argue that to do this, organizations have to stop acting like traditional companies that are just, layering on new tech and instead become fully AI native.
AI native, okay.
Yeah. But to understand their solution, we first have to understand what they call the value gap. They describe it as this funnel with two deadly cliffs where companies they just plummet.
Okay, let's define those cliffs. What's the first one?
The first cliff is the deployment gap. This is that sheer drop between running a successful pilot in a little sandbox and actually integrating it into the live production environment.
Right, getting it out of the lab.
Exactly. But the second cliff is quieter and, frankly, far more expensive. That is the gap between reaching production and consistently capturing value.
So you launch it, but...
You launch it, you might get the system live, but if you can't prove it actually moved the P&L, you've fallen off the second cliff.
It sounds like buying a state-of-the-art sports car, showing it off in your driveway, which is the pilot, but then realizing you haven't actually paved any roads to drive it to work.
That is a perfect analogy. You have the machine, but no infrastructure to get value out of it.
But wait, let me push back on this for a second. Why is this happening so consistently? I mean, we are talking about Fortune 500 enterprises here. They have basically unlimited budgets.
Yeah.
They are hiring the absolute top tech talent in the world.
Oh, yeah, the smartest people in the room.
Right. So why are they failing at what seems like basic technology implementation?
Well, it's because they aren't treating it as a fundamental shift in operations. The Agentics pinpoints the exact mechanism of this failure.
Yeah.
Companies are trying to take these incredibly powerful autonomous AI tools and just staple them onto their existing legacy business stacks.
It's the classic integration problem, but
Yeah.
on steroids.
Exactly. It's a totally different paradigm. And let's clarify what we mean by the technology here, because it's crucial. When most people think of AI, they think of generative AI, like a chatbot.
Right. You ask it a question, it answers.
Yeah, you ask it to summarize a PDF, and it summarizes it's a one-to-one interaction. But what these enterprises are trying to deploy is agentic AI and multi-agent systems.
Let's pause right there and define those terms, because they're getting thrown around a lot in the source material. What is the fundamental difference between standard Gen AI and agentic AI?
It really comes down to autonomy. Standard AI answers a prompt. Agentic AI is given a goal and it figures out the steps to achieve it itself.
Okay, give me an example. Let's ground this.
Sure, let's use a hypothetical to make it concrete. Imagine a major European supply chain logistics company. If they use standard AI, a human dispatcher might ask the AI, what is the fastest route for truck 42 today? The AI replies and the human enters the route.
So it still requires a human in the loop driving the action.
Right. But an agentic AI system operates totally differently. You give it the overarching goal, like optimize warehouse dispatch to minimize fuel costs.
And then it just goes.
Just goes. The agentic AI looks at the weather, looks at traffic data, realizes a storm is coming, queries the inventory database, and autonomously reroutes 20 trucks without a human ever typing a prompt.
Wow. Okay, and a multi-agent system.
That's when things get incredibly complex. That's when you have different AI agents with different specialties actually talking to each other.
Like a team of them.
Exactly. So the logistics agent realizes a truck is delayed, so it autonomously pings the customer service agent to notify the client, while simultaneously pinging the procurement agent to order replacement stock. They negotiate and act as a collective.
That sounds incredibly powerful, but honestly also slightly terrifying from an IT perspective.
Terrifying is the right word, and that is exactly why companies are falling off those cliffs. You cannot plug a highly autonomous multi-agent brain into a rigid 20-year-old ERP system. It just breaks.
It just doesn't compute.
Right. The Agentics argues that you have to completely rebuild workflows, technology stacks, and entire functions from the ground up to support this. Their team, which they've drawn from leading IT and consulting firms, focuses purely on production.
Not just endless pilots.
Exactly. They claim to have left behind the massive overhead and what they call the theater of traditional consulting. They just focus solely on speed to value.
Okay, so if stapling AI to an old system is a guaranteed failure, how does their framework actually prevent an enterprise from plunging off these cliffs? Like, what is the safety net here?
So according to their framework, the safety net isn't something you just catch yourself with at the end. It's a track you build from the very beginning. They call them the 3 continuous spines of the engine.
Spines, like a backbone.
Exactly. These are load-bearing structures that have to run through every single stage of an AI project. Value is only realized when all 3 hold at once.
Break those down for me. What are the 3 spines?
Spine number 1 is the value ledger. Think of this as the CFO's view. It rigorously quantifies the financial impact of the AI against a set baseline.
Okay, keeping the math honest.
Right. Spine number 2 is the governance layer. This is the risk and compliance view. And crucially, in 2026, it is aligned specifically to regulatory frameworks like the EU AI Act.
Which is no small hurdle. I mean, that legislation is dense.
It's massive. And then the third spine is the validation gates. These are forced evidence-based checkpoints where leadership has to actually look at the data and make a hard, honest decision. Go, adjust, or kill the project.
Go, adjust, or kill. I appreciate that framing. Nothing advances just out of sheer momentum or sunk cost fallacy.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that the source material really hammers this home. These spines are active from day one.
Which is not how it usually works. So.
Not at all. That is the traditional mistake. Most companies build a pilot, get really excited about it, and then ask compliance if it's legal or ask finance to try and reverse engineer an ROI.
Which never works out well.
Never. The Agentics framework says a scaled initiative with no ledger is just an unproven claim. A measured initiative without governance cannot legally scale, and either of those without gates just drifts into endless experimentation.
Okay, so you've got this 3-spined track. Now you actually have to run the train on it. The framework outlines a very specific sequence of stages, starting before anyone even writes a line of code. Let's talk about the first hurdle. They call it frame the value.
Right. And the rule here is absolute discipline. Before you build a single multi-agent system, you have to name the single business outcome you are targeting.
Just one.
Just one core outcome. You have to point to the exact P&L line it is going to move. And most importantly, you have to sign off on a current state baseline.
So what does this all mean in practice? Let's go back to our logistics company example.
Perfect. So if the logistics company says, we want to use AI to make our warehouse better, they fail the framing stage right there. Better isn't a baseline.
Right. They have to be specific. They have to say, currently, we spend 2 million euros a year on truck idle time at loading docks. The average wait time is 42 minutes. The human error rate on dispatch is 4%.
Exactly. You document the cost, the time, the volume, and the error rate. Because if you don't do this, you face a massive problem down the line. AI fundamentally changes the workflow.
Right, doesn't just speed up the old workflow, it replaces it.
Yes. So if you change the whole workflow and you don't know what your baseline was, you can never mathematically prove to your CFO that the AI actually saved you money. A value hypothesis without a baseline is just a wish.
Okay, so you've figured out the math. You've cleared the first validation gate because the CFO agreed on the baseline. But, paper is cheap. A spreadsheet projection doesn't mean the tech actually works in reality. How do you prove it won't just hallucinate and blow up your entire warehouse operations?
That brings us to the next reality check, which is validating the pilot. Now, we've talked about pilots a lot, but this framework treats them very differently than standard enterprise IT does.
How so? I mean, aren't companies already testing their AI?
They are running demos, not true pilots.
Oh, there's a difference.
A huge difference. A demo is when you show the steering committee a highly controlled scenario where the AI works perfectly. It's designed to impress people in a boardroom. The Agentics argues a pilot is a deliberate 4 to 8 week de-risking exercise. You are actively trying to break it.
You're hunting for failure modes.
Exactly. You feed it real, messy data. What happens when a driver's app crashes? What happens when a supplier's database goes offline?
The edge cases.
Right. You test the multi-agent system against the strict reliability thresholds that actual production will demand. It has to earn the right to scale by beating the human baselines we established earlier. It's an audition, not a victory lap.
And if it fails the audition, it hits the validation gate and gets killed. No sunk cost drift. But let's say it passes. Our logistics AI successfully optimized the routes in a single warehouse without breaking a sweat. We are ready to turn it on for all 50 warehouses across Europe. But here's where we hit the regulatory wall. Governing for scale.
Yes, the governance stage.
Now, I have to challenge this concept. Because in my experience, governance is usually the enemy of innovation. Innovators hate red tape.
Yeah.
Doesn't stopping to do a massive legal and risk review right when you have momentum just kill the project entirely?
It's a completely fair assumption. And honestly, it's how most companies operate. But the Agentics framework flips that logic entirely. They argue that governance, when it's built in via that continuous spine we talked about, is actually a scaling accelerator.
Okay, how does slowing down to do paperwork accelerate anything?
Because if you don't do it now, you hit a brick wall right before the finish line. Think about it. A highly profitable, value-positive pilot gets to the deployment stage. The IT team is totally ready to push it live.
Right.
Then the legal department finally looks at it and says, wait a minute, this autonomous agent is making decisions that impact human employment contracts. Yeah. Under the EU AI Act, this is a high-risk system. Where is your transparency documentation? Where is your audit logging? And because they didn't build those logs into the code from day one, they have to scrap the whole thing and start over.
Precisely. Governance bolted on at the end kills projects. Governance built in from the start means you risk tier the initiative right away. You define exactly what human oversight looks like in the code itself.
So it's proactive.
Highly proactive.
Yeah.
You prep the transparency docs alongside the software development. So when it's time to scale, risk and compliance have already signed off.
Okay, so the legal department gives the green light. The system is compliant. Here's where it gets really interesting, because now you have to actually plug this futuristic AI brain into a company's actual IT infrastructure. We are scaling into production. And the source material makes a very stark point here. Scaling is a distinct program. It is not just taking your pilot and making it bigger.
No, it is a completely different beast. And this is the technological hurdle that trips up even the most well-funded enterprises. When you scale, you have to harden the system. You have to integrate this fluid, dynamic, multi-agent system with, frankly, clunky, rigid legacy databases. It's like, imagine hiring a brilliant, multilingual genius translator, but forcing them to communicate all their insights using a broken 1990s telegraph machine. The AI brain is thinking in 3 dimensions, processing millions of variables instantly, but the nervous system of the company, the legacy ERP system, simply can't carry the signals fast enough.
That is a fantastic analogy, and it's exactly the problem. The Agentics highlights that overcoming this requires dedicated integration architectures. You have to build custom bridges between the agentic logic and the legacy execution layers. But, beyond just the plumbing, the math of errors changes entirely at scale.
The law of large numbers.
Exactly. A 3% error rate in a small pilot might mean a human dispatcher has to manually fix 6 routing errors a week. No big deal.
Yeah, easy.
But a 3% error rate in full enterprise production, that's thousands of trucks being sent to the wrong city.
which becomes an absolute operational nightmare.
Right, which is why at this stage you have to establish what's called observability.
Observability.
Yeah, if an agent reroutes a truck into a hurricane, observability means you have the tooling to look under the hood and see exactly which data point or which sub-agent interaction triggered that bad decision. And crucially, this stage demands naming a production owner,
An actual person.
a specific human who is personally accountable for the AI's behavior and its continuous improvement.
Okay, and the gate to clear this stage. The value ledger has to show realized impact, not projected impact. The CFO has to look at the bank account and say, yes, operating costs actually went down. Real money actually saved or made. Which leads us to the final horizon, the ultimate goal of all of this, compounding the value.
Yes. This is how an enterprise joins the elite. The research cites data from Roland Berger identifying about 10% of companies as industrializers.
Industrializers, okay.
These are the rare organizations that don't just have a few cool AI tools, but they consistently capture value across the board. The Agentics notes that a single-scaled AI initiative, even a very successful one, is just a result. But a portfolio of initiatives that compound upon each other, that is a capability.
So how do they mechanically achieve that compounding effect?
Right.
Like, what are they doing differently?
By consolidating the value ledger. They take the 2 million euros they realized in savings from that warehouse routing project, and they aggressively reinvest it into funding the next cohort of AI agents. Say, an intelligent procurement system.
Using the wins to fund the next round.
Exactly. Furthermore, they reuse the governed, legally compliant code patterns they already built. So project number 2 moves twice as fast as project number 1. They build momentum, and they report this portfolio-level impact directly to the board.
It changes the conversation from, look at this cool tech, to look at this compounding financial asset. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly what the Agentics is targeting. They are applying this engine across massive, complex industries.
Oh yeah, across the board.
CPG, retail, FMCG, direct-to-consumer, automotive, healthcare, energy, manufacturing, logistics, banking and financial services, and general services.
Yes, these are sectors with massive legacy infrastructures and very tight margins. In those industries, the difference between a pilot and production is measured in millions of euros.
Which brings up the ultimate question for you, the listener. If an enterprise actually commits to this discipline, if they tear down their old workflows and go AI native using a framework like this, what is the tangible payout? Why should they care?
Well, the Agentics claims to deliver 3 very distinct outcomes. Number 1 is a significantly lower total cost of ownership.
Okay.
By redesigning for AI, you strip away all that bloated middleware and end up with leaner tech and operations. Number 2 is higher operational efficiency. You automate the highly repetitive work, you augment your human teams, and you deploy intelligent workflows that actually learn and improve on their own over time.
And number 3, which is really the holy grail that solves the paradox we opened with, measurable EBIT impact, actually turning enterprise AI into provable gains in productivity, margins, and growth.
Moving an enterprise from just using AI to truly operating as an AI-native business.
And obviously, executing this isn't just about understanding the theory. To get companies there, the Agentics utilizes what they call their validation-first framework for de-risk disruption, which powers a pretty extensive suite of services.
Yeah, it's a very comprehensive toolkit.
They offer enterprise AI readiness and maturity assessments. They build the actual agentic AI multi-agent solutions. They do that brutal ERP integration we talked about.
Which is huge.
Yeah, alongside broader enterprise AI transformation and enterprise technology services.
They even factor in AI, ESG, and sustainability, which is critical, because running these massive multi-agent systems requires immense compute power. And aligning that with environmental goals is a growing regulatory requirement.
And they also have value-added services.
Yeah.
If you're curious about how their specific methodologies map onto all these services, they detail it all at their hub at theagentics.co.
It's definitely worth checking out.
But the core thesis we need to take away from this is clear. The era of adopting AI just so your CEO can write a press release saying you have AI, that era is officially over.
Long gone.
The technology is capable. The models are ready. The difference between profitless prosperity and massive ROI isn't just better code. It's the operational machinery you build around the code.
Yeah.
It is having the sheer discipline to frame the value, validate the pilot, govern for scale, seamlessly integrate it into production, and compound the wins.
Absolutely. And, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a completely different dimension of this to think about.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've talked extensively about the operational and financial hurdles of scaling multi-agent systems, but consider the legal reality of what happens when these systems actually become fully autonomous at an industry-wide scale.
Oh, wow. No.
If your enterprise deploys a multi-agent AI to negotiate supply chain contracts, and a competitor does the exact same thing, and those two AI systems autonomously negotiate and sign a catastrophic, legally binding agreement that bankrupts a division who is actually liable.
Wait, really? That's a terrifying thought.
Right. Is it the CFO who signed off on the ledger? Is it the developer who wrote the integration code? Or the company that provided the baseline AI model? As we move from human-in-the-loop pilots to autonomous compounded production, the concept of corporate liability is going to have to be completely rewritten.
That is a phenomenal question, and it really underscores why having that governance and validation spine built in from day one isn't just about saving money. It might be about saving the company from itself. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a hard look at the systems running in your own organization, ask the tough questions about where the real value is, and we will catch you on the next one.